Alright guys, today we're going to do a tough one. We're looking at the 10 worst trends in motorcycling for 2019. Now, this isn't a video I wanted to do, but it's one that must be done. In order for us to keep championing the good word of motorcycling and doing all we can to spread the gospel of Lord Rossi and continue down our path of righteous wheelies, dank canooners, and sick leans, it must be done. I don't want to call out anyone specifically, but by God, if that's what it takes to save motorcycling from these trends, then I shall do it. First of all, hello. Welcome back to Yammie Noob. Hopefully this isn't your first time here, but if it is, leave me a comment letting me know. How weird that you stumbled across this video. Then smash that subscribe button. The only way we can keep churning out high quality motorcycle content on a daily basis, yep, you heard that right, is to make sure we keep racking up subs. And also, in case you don't know, if you've been living under a rock or something, we give away motorcycles on this channel. That's right, we've got a brand spanking new Yamaha R3 and Suzuki SV650 ready to be given away to two lucky winners. Each person gets a bike. Incredible. Check out the link below to find out how you can enter completely for free or support the series and earn additional chances to win. Now, our topic today isn't an easy one to hear, and if you're participating in these trends, then I'm gonna have to strike you down. But without further ado, here are the 10 worst trends in motorcycling right now. Our first trend, it's one that's been going on for quite some time, but it needs to be stopped, and that is boring MSF classes with Rebel 250s. Look, I get it, somewhere along the way, Honda struck a deal with the MSF, the Motorcycle Safety Foundation course for all you non-America dudes, and sold about 1 billion of these wretched little motorcycles for beginners to learn on. In case you don't know, the Honda Rebel 250 is a single-cylinder 250cc cruiser motorcycle, which, hey, let's be real here. A big reason why the Rebel is used in starter classes is its approachable seat height, low power, and reliability. The only issue is that those exact same things can be found in another Honda, a better Honda, the XR100. Mini bikes like this, or hell, even the Grom, would make riding around a parking lot way more fun, and you'll learn all your basics about clutch control, throttle, and brakes. Furthermore, why are we still poodling around in parking lots? Let's get folks out on kart tracks and then get them to actual corners at slow speeds. I would really love to see a world where we not only have full practical street components to our MSF, much like the licensing system in Europe, but also provide folks with some bikes that are actually quite fun to ride. Because motorcycling is about fun, after all. The next trend we need to discuss is super adventure bikes. This is a tough one. On the one hand, it's amazing to see any segment in motorcycling seeing any growth at all right now. But on the other hand, if I see one more $28,000 super adventure bike that doesn't really do off-road that well and has 170 horsepower for some reason, I'm going to lose it. Mercifully, this trend does seem to be going the way of the dinosaur since Yamaha is coming out with that Tenere 700. If Rossi wills it, we might even see it here in the land of burgers, guns, and fireworks. Who knows? Hell, even something like the Triumph Scrambler 1200XE is basically just a huge naked ADV bike, so who is that really for? And trust me, it's not lost on me that this is coming from a guy who owns a Ducati Desert Sled, basically an overpriced and not really that great dual sport bike, but you guys don't understand. It's a really, really good bike, and wow, look how pretty it is. Maybe I'm not evolved enough yet as a dual sporter to understand these crazy superpowered ADV bikes, but either way, you're gonna want something light and maneuverable in the dirt. Haha, said the dude with the 400-pound Ducati off-road bike. Our next trend is one we'll have to contend with, and that is ride sharing. Whether you guys like it or not, it appears the Turo model of car sharing is trying to make its way into motorcycling. For most guys who have been at this hobby for a while, we tend to rack up some toys, some of us more than others. And when you have your work, family, and other commitments, how often are you really going to ride that bike you bought last year on a whim? That's where these ride sharing companies are coming in. As a business model, it seems to make sense. You rent out the bike, you don't ride that much, make some extra cash, and enjoy. Practically, however, you have insurance to deal with, the fact that you're literally handing over the keys to your baby to some stranger for a few extra bucks, and who knows if this thing will really pan out. Most motorcycle consumers, if they do have a spare $100 to throw at a motorcycle rental for a day, probably have enough money to just go and buy a bike instead. I'm not really sure who the target audience for the renter is, but the motorcycle landlord customer is pretty clear. It's that one dude you know that has the 3 Ducatis, the 2 BMWs, and the 4 off-road toys. The next trend on our list that needs to die is white tire lettering. Why are people still doing this? Why? It looks tacky, it doesn't hold up, and is a purely trend-setting aesthetic choice. In case you're unfamiliar, white tire lettering is when someone takes the tire/symbols on the side of their tire and they use white permanent marker and fill it in to look look cool, I guess. The issue with white tire lettering is that it simply doesn't last. It's like the motorcycle equivalent to plasti dipping your wheels, which I guess some guys like the flaky paint look, but it's just really not for me. The next two trends on our list go hand in hand, and the first one is winglets. Unless you've been living under a rock, you've probably seen a few Italian motorcycles with these cute little winglets at the front of their nose. The new Ducati V4 and Aprilia RS V4 Factory 1100 have them, but BMW's new S1000RR notably does not have them. Winglets are in place on these bikes for homologation purpose, meaning the race bikes can have them because the road-going bikes have them. However, anyone who tells you that the winglets do anything at normal road speeds are just lying to themselves. Winglets are only effective at or above something like 180 miles per hour, but let me know in the comments last time you went that fast. Even for a seasoned track rat, unless you're doing days at the Circuit of the Americas or Mugello, you probably won't see 180 miles per hour on your clock, like ever. But bragging rights are bragging rights, and folks need to know that you've got the winglets, I suppose. And now that leads us to our next trend that needs to go, and that's the cheater 1100cc superbike. There's been a bit of a trend lately to expand and increase displacement on superbikes because 1000 cc's and 200 horsepower is just weak sauce, to be honest. So Ducati and Aprilia are at it making 1100cc superbike monsters for guys who have more money than sense to buy it and feel like they're MotoGP heroes on the street. The weird thing is, this makes a lot of business sense. You make a cheater 1100cc street bike, but then you make special variants that are stupidly high output, like the V4R, to go racing with. You're just hyper segmenting a market that you thought was so narrow and it couldn't be segmented anymore, yet you just did. These companies have realized that there's two distinct customers for these motorcycles. You have the discerning track rat with more money than sense who wants the finest in racing technologies to have fun with at the track. This is your V4R, HP4, R1M kind of guy. And then you have the superbike guy who just wants something insanely fast, wants to brag about it, and doesn't really care about going to the track all that much. Now that's your V4S and RSV4 factory customer. And as much as I hate the trend of the 1100cc cheater bike, they make a whole lot of sense for manufacturers. So they're probably going to be here to stay. I wouldn't be surprised if Japanese bikes followed suit as well. You might see an ultra-light race trim edition of the R1 that's super high output, 1000 cc's, and then a cheater 1100cc R1 for the streets. Who knows? Either way, it's a pretty sweet time to be a motorcyclist. The next trend we gotta talk about is no lane splitting in America except Cali and Utah. Praise be, Utah has seen the light and is allowed for lane splitting. Now, we only need 48 more states in the union to recognize this completely sensible and reasonable rule to be put into place. Lane splitting rules, not only for motorcyclists who hate being caught up in traffic, but for people who hate being in traffic too. Bikes take up way less space than cars, so by allowing them to filter to the front, you create much less traffic for everyone else. The issue is that America just doesn't have that many bikers in most states, and they're often seen as toys, not serious commuter vehicles. So lane splitting laws will languish, even though most riders would admit to filtering if pressured. I know I do here in Austin if the traffic is bad, and I've got somewhere to be. It's a silly trend that we don't have lane splitting in most states, but hey, at least our taxes are lower than Europe and we don't have to do the licensing system they have. One hand give, the other hand takes, my dudes. The other trend that bothers me is scramblers that just don't scramble. This one is near and dear to my heart since I recently picked up a Ducati Scrambler Desert Sled. Have I told you guys yet that I'm a Ducati Biscotti boy now? Did I mention my Ducati? I own a Ducati, did you know that? But scramblers are one of the coolest looking bikes on the market right now. Loaded with retro charm, good pokey engines, and one of the highest sales figures for Ducati in decades. Seriously, they've sold like over 50,000 of these things. So next time you're lusting after a Panigale, thank all the hipsters who allowed Ducati to be so flush with cash. The issue is that nearly all scramblers, unless you're talking about the Desert Sled or Triumph's new Scrambler 1200 XE, are all show and no go. They would do terribly in off-road environments, and hell, even my Desert Sled with its off-road specific suspension, skid plate, and big front wheel isn't going to be tackling any tough trails anytime soon. So why are scramblers unable to, well, scramble? Simple. To make a good-looking bike that resembles days past and keeps the cost under $10,000, you can't spec it with long travel suspension, crazy trick off-road parts, or reduce the weight like crazy. You need more style, less substance. Here's hoping we see even more cool retro off-road bikes, and maybe even a few more with the retro paint schemes like Ducati made, because those are sweet. Our penultimate trend that is one of the worst is electric bikes still not taking mainstream hold. It's sad that many in the motorcycling community are such Luddites. Electric bikes are cool. There, I said it. They have instant torque, they're trying to make something different, and whether you like it or not, they're here to stay. The thing that frustrates me is that electric bikes are still not reaching the mainstream potential they could. The problem is their range and the mainstream acceptance, unfortunately. Even though they're improving, we're still waiting on that battery breakthrough that will make them truly great. Until then, e-bikes just aren't catching on. And our final trend that we're sick of is crap fuel economy from mainstream bikes. Riddle me this: technology advances, things improve, but then somehow a Ducati 916 gets 50 mpgs, but these new leader bikes are getting like 30? Sure, the gains in performance are literally nearly twice as much, but if you're sacrificing half the mpgs for twice the performance, have you really made gains? It's the same story for little bikes too. MPGs on small bikes really haven't budged since the late 90s, and neither has performance. The new crap of small displacement sport bikes cater to that 47 horsepower A2 rule set in Europe, but they're not making any better MPGs than they did before. So one has to assume that this technology has been stuck in place for decades. And folks, that's gonna do it for today. What do you think of these trends? Do you agree, disagree? Let me know in the comments below. I do love hearing from you. And don't forget to hit the link below to learn how you can win a free Yamaha R3 or a Suzuki SV650. Both bikes are brand spanking new, ready to ride, and will be shipped off. You don't want to miss it. I'll catch you guys in the next one. See you later. Fact: it is illegal to carry an ice cream in your back pocket in Kentucky. Goodbye.